Welcome back, class 11th. Now in this part we will see criticisms of Indian secularism. We will see what are the criticisms of Indian secularism. Even though we have discussed Indian secularism, we will still get to know what people say about this form of secularism. Now, before starting with the topic, we have seen what Indian secularism is all about. It is equal respect and equal disrespect for all religious aspects of all religions within the Indian territory. So we will treat every religion equally in a positive sense or in a negative sense. Now, first criticism is it is anti-religious. How we can say that it is anti-religious? Because people say that Indian secularism disrespects all religion. It tries to intervene in the affairs of religion, so it is anti-religious. It tries to bring in reforms from the reforms within the Hinduism, within the Islam, within the Christianity, and within Parsi system, Zoroastrianism. So Indian secularism is first and foremost called as anti-religious. So because it protects, rather than protecting religious identity, it protects identity of individual. It gives importance to individuals and citizens. So this is the case with being it called anti-religious. The second criticism which it is given is that it is a Western import. That means secularism is not an Indian concept. It is a Western import. We have adopted this value from the Western nations, and now we have implemented in our nation of India. So this is also an absurd claim that in Western it is import of the Western nations. Why? Because you can see that in Western nations this was done because when the nations or the kingdoms felt they were being challenged by the religious authorities. For example, if I give an example of England, so when England when authority kingdom of England felt that they are being challenged by the authority of church, so they brought in the concept of secularism. So for them it was because church was intervening in the affairs of states. But in the Indian case, you will see that we brought secularism because we wanted to treat all religions equally. We wanted to give each and every individual an equal say in the Indian constitution, and for doing so, first we need to give them some rights. Because as you know, people in our community, people in our country were divided on the basis of caste and different religious groups. So first and foremost thing that we needed to be done was to bring them to make them stand on an equal platform so that everyone can be treated equally. So you can say that Western concept is based on the idea of mutual exclusion of state and religion, but in Indian concept it is completely different. It is not a Western import. If we are saying it is a Western import, that means Indian secularism should follow the ideals of Western secularism. That means that state should not intervene in the affairs of the religion. But this is not the case with Indian secularism. Indian secularism, we see state often intervenes and interferes in the affairs of religious aspects when it feels that Indian citizens are not being treated equally in any religious aspect. So it has both Western ideas and it has both original ideas which are non-Western, which are original to India's culture and India's religious aspects. So we will see that what we have is the idea of peaceful coexistence of different religious communities has been important. That means we give primacy, we give a preference, we give importance to the peaceful coexistence of different religious communities within this great nation of India. Why? Because India is a multi-religious, multilinguistic, multicultural society where we need to give each and everyone equal respects and not to distinguish themselves, not to distinguish among them on the basis of their religion or caste or anything at all. So next is minoritism. That means Indian secularism treats minorities with preference as compared to the majority, है ना? That Indian secularism advocates minority rights, है ना? So they say that Indian secularism gives primacy to minorities over majority people. So this is not the case. Why? Because I will give you an example which is given here. So you will see that by understanding through this example, we can see why minorities are given special rights. So here we can see there is an example of a movie being played in a theater, movie in a theater. So that movie is some movie is we can take example of Mahavatar Narsimha. So it was a good movie, by the way. I did watch it like 4 or 5 times in theater. So it was a good movie. So when we buy tickets of Mahavatar Narsimha, we went to the theater. Okay? We are going to the theater. We here it is given example of that only, which I am telling you. So access to theater seats is through staircases. Okay. So staircases are important so that we can reach the top seats. Hai na? These are the kind of seats, and this is the screen, and you can see that stairs are there for so that you can reach whatever aisle you have been allotted to be seated. But what if a person comes who is bound by a wheelchair, who is not able to climb up the staircase? What will happen then? So what Indian secularism is what they did is that they cannot climb up the stairs, they cannot jump the stairs because they are bound by their wheelchair. So what Indian secularism will do is they will try to provide a ramp so that they can also access their seats, they can also go to the aisle they have been allotted and reach the seats and be seated there, and then they can watch the movie. Because we cannot do so, sorry, we cannot do something like the tickets are not to be given to these kind of people. Why? Because it will be a kind of discrimination. So in a similar sense, minorities are given rights, minorities are given preference, sorry, not preference, but they are given rights so that they can protect their fundamental interest, in the sense that their number of people are less, so their fundamental interests are not subdued by the majority people. है ना? Like in this example of movie theater, if we go to a movie theater, we will see if there are 100 seats, we will see 99% of the people sorry, 99% of the people belonging to the group which is perfect, who can perfectly walk, jump and do these things without any assistance. But there might be one person who is not able to do so. So we cannot discriminate with that person because just because he is one in number or he is in minority. So in the similar case with the majority and the minority rights, we can see that we give them minority rights, or Indian constitution give them minority rights to protect their fundamental interests. And by giving that particular person, that wheelchair bound person, an extra ramp is not giving special treatment. It is rather giving him assistance, providing him with the assistance so that he can also do things he like watching a movie from a theater just like anybody else who is perfectly able to do so. So in a similar sense, you will observe that minorities are given rights to pursue their interests without any hindrance. So it is not a privilege, rather it is a help from the state to access their interest or to pursue their interest or pursue their goal and improve their conditions. Now fourth is interventionist. Now what is interventionist? Intervening means interfering. So fourth criticism claims that secularism is coercive and that it interferes excessively with the religious freedom of communities. This misreads Indian secularism. It is true that by rejecting the idea of separation as mutual exclusion, Indian secularism rejects non-interference in religion. That means कि Indian secularism does not go with the idea that we will not interfere with any religion. Why? Because as we have seen different examples how different intra-religious domination occurred, inter-religious domination occurred in Indian society, how different groups were being treated differently just because of their caste, because of their gender. So what Indian state does is it will not go with the idea of non-interference. It will always try to interfere whenever a citizen's rights are being deprived, whenever he is being deprived of his rights, and whenever his rights are being intervened due to some religious aspects. So what they did is that it can be said that it is of course true that Indian secularism permits state supported religious reforms, but they should not be equated with a change imposed from the above with coercive intervention. What this means is that okay, Indian secularism may permit some form of religious reforms, because it is required that every citizen is treated equally. But this intervention should not be coercive. That means a state should give some time to the religion or some form of religious freedom to these communities, that they can bring change by their own and not by the force of state. That means state should before bringing law should consult with should be in talks with these religious aspects of religious head of these particular religions, and then they should discuss that, okay, we are trying to bring in reforms, but if you will bring it on your own, so it will be very beneficial for us. So these kind of things can be done, so that it is not seen as a coercive action, coercive intervention. Coercive means forcing without consent, that is, you are imposing your consent on someone else. It is not your it is not their choice, but you are imposing, you are forcing your intention on them, so it is coercive, that means forceful. So as we can see, some questions arise, that these questions are, does it do it consistently? That means Indian state does it do it consistently all the time, है ना? Why have personal laws have all religious communities not been reformed to? That means why some communities or some religious laws are only reformed and not the religious laws of or personal laws of other communities, है ना? So this is the big dilemma facing the Indian state. A secularist might see the personal laws as manifestations of community specific rights that are protected by the constitutions. So a person who is a secular can see that, okay, we are giving all religions to equal treatment, we are giving all religions equal respect, so why interfere in their personal laws? Which means that if we have given religious freedom to all in this country, if we have provided all religions with equal respect, why are we trying to interfere in their personal laws, है ना? As a secularist you might see this. So this is the case because sorry. So as you can see that a secularist might think, or any person might think, that why intervening, है ना? Also another aspect that we can discuss is that they can see that, okay, these personal laws are just a front, है ना? Just a front or a facade to continue religious dogmatic policies which are discriminating towards other citizens. So one thing that they can see is that these religious aspects are personal laws and they are not to be intervened with. But another aspect that we can also observe is that these religious reforms are just policies, not just policy, that means not good policies, but they are policies in a sense that they are trying to create a facade. Okay, we are treating people just because of this religious aspect, and that is we have this religious aspect, that is why we are treating women differently, that is why we are treating lower caste differently, that is why doing so many things, because it is our religious freedom. So we can think on both these aspects, but you can see that these personal laws are manifestations which have arisen from the inter-religious dominations or intra-religious dominations. What it means is that, see, for example, if I'm discussing about the personal laws of Muslims, so in personal laws of Muslims it was triple talaq. In Hinduism it was right to hair, ठीक है, right to hair. ये in this right you can see that only sons were given priority, but when Indian government brought in reforms, it included it now, from now onwards, girl child will also be given equal share in the ancestral property. So we can see that these personal on one side we provide religions with the personal freedom, and on the other side we are trying to interfere also. So there are both these aspects because personal laws have arisen from the inter-religious domination or intra-religious domination. So Indian secularism against both these kinds of domination. That is why it tries to keep bringing in reforms. It tries to it tries to change the personal laws so that each and every citizen is given due respect that they deserve, just because, and not they are treated differently because of the gender or because of the low caste they belong to. So as we can see that states bring in laws to improve these personal laws, but one might say that rather than being an interventionist, है ना, that we are discussing, that rather than being an interventionist, what a state should do, what government should do is they need to appease, sorry, they not appease, appease is the wrong term, they need to give them one chance, or they need, they need to facilitate, yes, facilitate is the right word, they need to facilitate these reforms by religious communities themselves and not by the state law. What I mean to say is that rather than bringing in laws or state laws, है ना, that government is passing laws in the Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha and then making it an act, rather than doing these things beforehand, they need to discuss these ideas with the religious communities, religious head of that particular religion, and then they need to facilitate reforms from the religious head of that particular religious community, है ना, that people should be the one bringing in reforms and a state should only facilitate it. So this is the case with interventionist. So here it is given, the state must act as a facilitator by supporting liberal and democratic voice within every religion, है ना. If any citizen is asking, okay, we need to bring in reforms within this aspect of any religious aspect of our religion, है ना, Hinduism, Islam, so what the state should do is, rather than bringing just laws, it should help those people, it should help those people support their voices, है ना, give them a platform to to raise their voices against these atrocities or discriminations and whatever is the case, and they can keep their they can present their opinions in front of everyone, so that reforms are brought in by the people themselves and not by the state trying to intervene. Now, vote bank politics. Now, as we can see in the recent times also, we have discussed, secularism is treated as vote bank politics. Each and every political party tries to woo some or the other community, and they say, okay, this is the we are secular because we are giving you seats, we are secular because we are not treating you differently from the other major religion or the other minority religion. So each and every party you will see in today's time tries to lure people, है ना, through ideas of secularism. So that is why you can say vote bank politics is one of the criticism of Indian secularism, because people from that particular community will be asked that you should give me vote because I am a secular person, I will not treat you differently. So rather than supporting secularism, rather than paying attention or enhancing the concept of secularism, they are utilizing secularism for their narrow parochial views. And you can see and observe this with each and every party that is present in our country, and every other party does so, that whenever some group of people are treated differently, some or the other party will raise their voice, okay, these people are being treated differently because they belong to some particular group, they belong to A group, they belong to B group, है ना. When Hindus are treated differently, they will say, okay, Hindus are in minority and nobody treats them with equality, they are in majority, so they are not given due respect, that is why they are being treated differently. When Muslims are treated differently, then people will say, okay, these Muslim people are treated differently because they are appeasing minority, है ना, when doing so with the Sikh and Jainism and Buddhism and so on. So you'll see with every religion it is same case, and with every political party. So vote bank politics is one of the criticism of secularism because of all these things. They want electoral gains, है ना, they appease to they are preferring electoral gains rather than long developmental gains for our country. If I give you an example, if I suggest you something that we should vote for a person who is trying to bring in the development, है ना, as we have seen in the recent Bihar elections, as you have seen in many of the YouTube videos that you have seen, that when people were asked which candidate you are going to vote, people said, okay, this candidate is from which caste, this candidate is from which community, है ना. So people were asking this question rather than asking कि If a person is a candidate in our constituency, what are his priorities for citizens of this constituency? If B person is a candidate of our constituency, what are the priorities for our constituencies? That what are the major development, infrastructural development that is going to bring when he is going to be elected? But rather than focusing on these things, people themselves were discussing, okay, this person was from which caste, this person from which community. So you can see that these are done by people in power for electoral gains, है ना? And they often neglect issues which are substantive, which are important to improve the conditions of particular area, region, country, anything, है ना? Now, or you can see another examples in the in our state of Uttar Pradesh as well, that Samajwadi Party, है ना? Samajwadi Party, what it does is it focuses on two groups, Yadavs and Muslims. So what it does is that it gives priority to Yadavs and Muslims. So whenever they are when they have something, so they will focus on these two communities, and when they are asked question about the other communities, they will say we are focusing on other communities as well. But this creates a sense of distinction, differentiation with other communities, that now people see themselves, see these political parties as appeasing to particular group or particular religious community, whether a minority community or whether a majority community, it doesn't matter, but they will appeal to some or the other form of communities for their parochial interest. If I say that SP is supporting Muslims, it is good, okay, it is fine. But if you are supporting Muslims for your political gains and not for their benefit, then it is bad, है ना? Which is the case with case with most of the political parties, that they will support any minority group, they will say okay, your rights will be protected, and they will they will spread false news that your rights are being taken away and things like that. But it is not so easy to take away some community's rights, because it is mentioned in our constitution, and our constitution is a strong constitution. It will not be so much easy to just to take away those rights. So they spread propaganda, they spread, I'm not talking about any particular party, I'm saying that all political parties are doing the similar thing. They are following the similar policies of spreading false narratives and then attracting votes in their favor, rather than discussing about developmental issues, rather than discussing about how they are going to bring in reform so that each and every community can prosper and flourish. They are only discussing about how they are going to give these communities importance when they are in power. So all these things have resulted in the vote bank politics of Indian secularism as a criticism. Now, it is impossible project. Now, this is going to be your end. So we will see impossible project. Now, why impossible project? That first thing is, a secularism cannot work because it tries to do too much to find a solution to an intractable problem. And what is this problem? People with deep religious differences will never live together in peace. Now, this is an empirically false claim. Why? We will see. Now, this criticism is impossible project. What it said is कि it is impossible that secularism is trying to find a solution that all communities in India, all religions in India can exist peacefully. It cannot do so. As what this criticism is saying, this is not my word. What I'm trying to say is, this criticism says that people with different religious ideas will not coexist. But I have a different proposition. I have a different idea, that people from different communities in India have existed for a long time, and it is not a recent phenomena, and people will continue to exist even though there are religious differences. Why? As you can see in our society of India, we had different people, different religious communities from from all over the world and within Indian territory as well. So we have existed in the past, we have existed today, and we will also exist in future as well. So what I mean to say is that history of Indian civilization shows that it is living together is realizable. We had people from Arabia trading here. We had people from Portugal. We have people from England. We have people from different nations. We have people from Africa. You can see that people from different countries came here, and they are assimilated into the society of India, the best example that I can give you is of the Parsis, of the Zoroastrianism followers. These people came to India thousands of years ago, and they are settled in India, and they are they are very much part of the India as the other communities, as the majority communities. So you can see that these have existed in the past, and so we can see that Muslims have existed in the past. We had Muslim kingdoms in Mughal Empire in the northern part of India. We had Bahmani kingdoms, in the southern part of India. We had all these kingdoms where the king was from a different religion and the subjects of that kingdom were different religion followers. In the Bahmani kingdom, the rulers were the Muslims and the followers were Muslims and Hindus both. ठीक. In Mughal Empire, we had people in northern India, followers of the subjects were followers of Hinduism and the rulers were kingdoms were Muslim or Turkish. Okay. We had Delhi Sultanate where we had five Sultanate, that's slaves dynasty and Tughlaq dynasty, Khilji dynasty. We had all these dynasties, and yet people have existed. See, we can say that some people have tried to convert or some people have tried to impose their religion on the others, but they could not do so with each and every other person, because as we can see, India is still a diverse nation, and at that point of time it was a diverse nation. So this cynical criticism is not true. Why? Because we have realized we have existed in the past with different religious communities. And another thing we can say is that Indian society from the past and in the present, it is no, presently also it is a multi-religious society, it is a multicultural society, and a society like India has a society like India has not existed in the past in any other part of the world, and in present day also, if you can see that such a wide variety of people, such wide variety of religions are not in existence in any other countries. You will find people from India following particular religion, you will find people from West Asia moving to US, moving to Europe, but such a diverse and religious society, such diverse and religious societies like India have not existed, and yet due to this divergence we see that people are coexisting with each other peacefully. There are some instances, we can see that there are some instances where people with narrow interest, people with parochial interest, as I have told you earlier, they try to pursue their interest, that we should promote particular religion, we should not be friends with people from other religion. But apart from all those, out of 100, if we say there are 10 people are like this, there are 10-15 people are like this. But apart from all these people, if you observe that the middle class and the other upper classes and the all other classes, they are worried about their own development, they are discussing their own development, and they are busy with their own values and cultural aspects and things and going on in their life and things like these. So no, most of the people have coexisted and they are coexisting in present day, even though you can see there is some form of turmoil, some form of turmoils that exist. So Indian concept of secularism, as we can see, is a very interesting experiment which is going on, that even though we belong to such a diverse society, we belong to such a diverse cultural multilinguistic society, yet we have given rights to each and every community, whether linguistic minority, whether religious minority, or whether cultural minority. We have assimilated each and every other culture in India, and yet they have their own uniqueness. We have one common identity as Indian citizen, yet we are different. So we can see all these things, we can observe from our own eyes. There is no need to give any other explanation that why Indian secularism will not work. So as my concluding argument, I will say that Indian society is a great experiment. It is my concluding statement, that Indian society is a great experiment where we can observe different religions living and existing peacefully, and they have continued to live over the past thousands of years, and they will still continue to live over the next 100 and million years to come. So this is the case that I want to say, that what we need to do is we need to observe things as they are rather than listening to some people, some political parties with narrow interest, that they are trying to appease some groups. So Thank you class. Have a wonderful day. If you like this lecture, kindly do leave a comment and thank you. Have a nice day. और हैशटैग में इन हैशटैग कमेंट हैशटैग सेक्युलर इंडिया. थैंक यू. हैव अ नाइस डे.